People ask me all the time, how does your bookstore decide what to stock? Like, who decides what makes it onto all of these shelves? How far ahead are bookstores buying? What happens when a book suddenly blows up on TikTok? How do you know what's going to sell and when, and what flops? One of my favorite parts of opening a bookstore was the book buying. In the early days, I did almost all of it myself. I loved discovering new books. I loved reading catalogs late at night and having meetings with the sales reps. It was a challenge to try to figure out what readers wanted, and I loved stocking my store. But over time, I realized something that most owner-operators come around to. I couldn't do every single thing myself. Thankfully, along the way, I met two people who are much better at book buying than I ever was. So now, our adult book buyer, Kim, and our children's book buyer, Melissa, do all of the book buying for Old Town Books.
So hi, I'm Kim. I am the adult buyer at Old Town Books.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and I'm the children's buyer at Old Town Books.
So when people ask me this question, I have to say, you know what? I'm not sure anymore. Let's ask Kim and Melissa. Hi, I'm Allie Kirkpatrick. I'm the owner of Old Town Books in Alexandria, Virginia. And in this video, I'm taking you behind the scenes to see just how this local independent bookstore stocks their shelves. We're talking to book buyers Melissa and Kim for all the details.
That's really, really hard, especially because the best thing about indie bookstores is that they're well curated. So every season I go through all of the publishers' catalogs to see what is coming out. I talk to our reps to see what they think is going to be big and buzzy to make sure that we have those in. And I rely a lot on our staff, what they read, what they're excited about, the arcs that they've already read, books that they're excited about, authors that they're excited about, to bring in those titles.
I like to think about my buying as a giant chess game where I'm fitting lots of different needs and trying to have a wide representation of interests. For instance, I might bring in a K-pop Demon Hunter graphic novel and put it with our graphic novel section as a way for kids to sort of feel like they can trust that section because they see this kind of eye candy. But then I'm careful to put books around that I think have potentially a higher literary merit, but just as much kid appeal if kids would just give them a chance. So I'm always thinking about sort of how to put books in conversation with one another that will spark interest and discovery in our readers.
So an ARC is an advanced reader copy. One of the big perks of working at a bookstore is that we have access to both physical and digital advanced reader copies. I'm looking through the catalogs, and that's really where I'm discovering a lot of books. I do love Bookstagram and BookTube and places like that. I also love New York Times and other book reviews like that. Those normally come out after the book has come out, so they're a little bit less helpful to make sure that we have the books that you all want on release day.
Most of my buying is done through the front list catalogs on Edelweiss. I read every single picture book that is in a front list catalog so that the picture books that I bring into the store are really curated, have my endorsement. It is rare for me to put a book on order somebody on staff hasn't read and loved. My issue with trade reviews is that they often are more concerned with the literary merit of a book as opposed to its kid appeal. So I take it with a grain of salt and sort of I'll use that as a starting place and then make my own informed opinions.
This is particularly hard for me. I'm a huge genre reader. That's my favorite. Sci-fi, fantasy, romance. Those are the books that I love to read. And while they sell well in our store, they're definitely not kind of our bread and butter for our customers. So I rely a lot on some of our other booksellers who do have similar taste and bring in things that they like. And sometimes I just have to know that just because I love a book doesn't mean our customer base is going to, and that's okay too. It'll find a good home at another bookstore, and that's okay.
Well, I obviously want to force them to like the books that I like. It's really my goal, is to create a cult. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly true that we all have our personal preferences. If I had my way, then I would just carry really slow, beautiful, character-driven, realistic fiction in middle grade. And let me tell you, that is not what 90% of children today want to read. I try so hard to read with a kid gaze, and that makes it inherently more interesting to me.
One of the things that our customer base has really seemed to appreciate is the titles they've never heard of, or kind of the odd books off that they're like, oh my God, you have this, I didn't think you would. And so that's kind of the balance, is we want to make sure that we have deep stock of the big title that has just come out that everyone comes in asking for. But then we also want to make sure we have a book that catches their eye when they're in here that they hadn't even heard of and are like, I can't leave without this. This sounds so great.
Well, I think that we have the option to have a really curated curated space because we've got all of these great experts on our staff, all these really passionate readers. And I think some stores, they don't have the time, they don't have a boss that supports them putting in the time for that curation, and they just might order one of everything that's new and just spine it all. And I think that's really hard for parents and kids to shop. I'd much rather have fewer titles, deeper quantities, more face outs, books that can show up in our reading guides. I can put that time into curation, and then I know that it's going to result in the sales because we'll be able to train our staff on those books, and we'll be able to get excited about them, and we will really fervently believe that they're the best of what's being published today.
It's really hard. Especially when you're doing reorders and you're trying to decide, okay, this book's sold, am I gonna bring it back in and see if it sells again? What if it doesn't move? I'm looking through hundreds of thousands of books each season to put together the best curated list. And we're a smaller store, so we're not bringing in everything. So making that decision, it's a lot of decision fatigue, and it's a lot of details.
I will say that one part about buying that is very sad is the returning of books, which has to be done quarterly. Sometimes your ego has to take a fall when you're packing up all these books that you loved and you were just sure that others were gonna love, and then you have to say goodbye to them.
The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. It's my favorite book of all time, and I think everybody should read it, whether you like sci-fi or not.
Probably Kate Albus's A Place to Hang the Moon, because it is just the most heartwarming family read aloud ever, and it has such broad appeal because it's got girls and boys, and it's just a book that our family fell in love with, and so many of our customers have fallen in love with, and I will never get tired of selling that book.
So that's it. One thing I've learned over the years is that bookstores are shaped by 1,000 tiny little decisions, and by the people who make them. Fortunately for Old Town Books, I have a talented team behind me, and Melissa and Kim are at the forefront of that. Honestly, watching them build these sections and grow the bookstore has been one of the greatest pleasures of my life. They're so talented, and they know just what our readers need in our community. So I hope this video gave you a better understanding of just how indie bookstores stock their shelves. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comments. And if there are other sides to bookstore or publishing life that you're curious about, make sure to ask those too. See you next time.